And now a little bit about today's speaker. So David Flora is an instructional technologist for Morehead State University, and he's also an illustrator for books, games, and magazines. Ericka Hollis, your other presenter, is an instructional designer at Morehead State University, and she's a PhD student in the School Technology Leadership Program at the University of Kentucky. And then Xavier Scott, who also contributed to this presentation, but will also be helping answer your questions in the chat along with Misty Cobb, is an instructional technologist at Morehead State University and a graphic designer. And I will add that this team is the recipient of a 2013 Exemplary Course Award. So they're coming off a win for this course that they designed entitled the Online Collaborative Experience. So you have 3 great experts here on today's call who are sharing with you some of their best practices. So we're very excited to get started, and I'm sure you all are as well. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to David and Ericka, who are going to walk through the online collaborative experience.
Thank you very much, Laura. And this is Dave Flora from Morehead State University. I'm going to be starting out our conversation this morning about the online collaborative experience. And then Ericka is going to complete the second half as she goes in a little bit more in depth about the particular activities we have in the online collaborative experience. So Lauren did an excellent introduction of who we are, but what is the online collaborative experience itself? It is a course that we came up with. Let me get past that to the slide. This is the course that we came up with as basically a follow-up to an activity we did here on campus that was called a boot camp, a faculty boot camp. This was a week-long, all-day activity where about 30 faculty got together. We spent the mornings going over various topics with them about course organization, online course organization, and accessibility in online course, and we also covered copyright. And it was a wonderful activity, energizing not just because of the material that we were able to deliver in the mornings, but in the afternoons. A lot of faculty sharing went on, and there was a lot of great energy that came off of that. And we wanted to do something to follow up that event. Unfortunately, if there's a lot of you out here that do a lot of professional development, getting people to actually attend face-to-face trainings is more and more difficult just because faculty are very busy people. So we thought we might be able to do this in an online environment and try to capture the same kind of energy. Go to the next slide. So there are really 3 reasons here as to why we actually decided to do the online collaborative experience in this particular format. The first is to give the faculty a student experience of these online tools. If you've created something like a wiki or a blog or a journal in particular in the Blackboard environment, you'll notice as an instructor, creating tools is very simple. You have very few options. The trick to these tools is really understanding the differences between the tools. How is a wiki different from a blog? How is a blog different from a journal? So on and so forth. And really, that's something that would be very difficult to do, even to explain to an instructor in a face-to-face course. So we thought it would be a great idea to create an online course to bring the faculty into the professional development activity as a student, have them participate as a student so they really understood how those tools work and could explain to their students what to expect. Also, we're encouraging them to learn from each other. We have lots of course discussions where they can talk about collaboration in face-to-face activities and online. So even we've had faculty even come in and say, I don't believe that collaboration can be done in an online environment. And that is absolutely fine. What we are interested in is the discussion and the energy that's generated there. The third reason we decided to do it in an online format like this is modeling. We based the design of this course around several of the key elements that's delivered in the Quality Matters Guideline for course building, and many of the people that have attended our workshop, the Online Collaborative Experience, have never actually participated in an online course before. So this was our opportunity to structure an online course in such a way that may give them ideas of how they could change the structure of their course, how it may be easier for them to change how some of the content is laid out, just modeling, just let them see what a course may be like. Now, I don't like talking straight from PowerPoint presentations, so I'd like to take you into the course itself. I think that's probably an exciting thing. So if you give me just a moment, I'll bring it up. Okay, move this out of the way. So this is the entry page, the announcements area, and the online collaborative experience. One of the first things that you may notice from this is that there's nothing terribly shocking or surprising about the colors, but we wanted to keep the layout purposefully very simple and not distracting for those people who may not have had lots of experience in online environments. You'll notice over on the left, the course menu over here is laid out by weeks. So we have week 1, week 2, and week 3, so that you would know exactly where to go at any moment. And as a matter of fact, when we're teaching this course, very often we'll hide the weeks until they get to those weeks, so they're not confused by seeing content that they shouldn't be working on currently. And we also have a start year area. This is a great idea. It also is a Quality Matters idea, but it's a place where we can have lots of information. Well, let's just go into it while we're here. So you see we've got our welcoming announcements. We outline the course objectives here in the course. We've also got the course schedule that tells them exactly what they're going to be doing during the 3 weeks they're with us online. We have a course syllabus. No, maybe a course syllabus isn't 100% necessary for a 3-week professional development, but like I said, we are modeling, so we wanted to make sure that faculty knew that they included a Start Here button. A syllabus might be a good thing to actually put there. We have a disclaimer about some of the audio-video content that we're going to be using. They need to have a computer with speakers and so on and so forth. And then we just, at the bottom, go over what they can expect to find under the various buttons over in the course menu. So I'm going to go into the week 1 area of the course, and I'm going to be talking about the outline of the content. As I said later, Ericka is going to be discussing the particular activities in depth, but each week we tried to be as consistent as possible with how we delivered descriptions, tutorials, assignments, and assessments. So I'm just going to go into Module 1 quickly. So here we are in week 1. We start off with the goals, the sorts of things that we expect them to be able to do when they've completed the week 1 activities. And the very first activity here, we try to describe what a blog actually is. Because with someone who's not terribly familiar with online tools, they maybe have never actually participated in a blog or seen a blog or even realized that they were looking at a blog. So how we did this is, of course, we have a definition of a blog from a peer-reviewed journal. We have some common sense terms about a blog and how it's used. We have a short video introduction about a blog. So we're trying to repeat the same information and different kinds of media to reinforce what a blog could be. Below that video, you can see that there is a tutorial about creating a blog. This tutorial is for students because, of course, they are a student in this course and they'll be required to work with a blog with this course. But below that, there are also 3 tutorials how faculty can create blogs, how they can post blogs and reply to blogs as an instructor in their own course. Just kind of giving them an idea of how these tools might be able to be used in their own course. Below that is our first activity. This is a blog activity, 2 Truths and a Lie. This is my favorite activity. I can't say too much about it because I don't want to take Ericka's thunder, but this is a fabulous activity that we're going to be telling you a little bit about later on. But that's their first blog activity. They get their hands into a blog here and some experience with the tool. After that, we move on to the discussion board. Now, a discussion board is an old tool, but there are lots of similarities between discussion boards and blogs, and we wanted to make sure we covered discussion boards so we were very clear about how the conversations are different in a discussion board and a blog. As we did above, we have tutorials for as a student, and these go to Blackboard's on-demand resources, which are excellent resources. And then below that, we have some tutorials as instructors, where they can create forums and threads and those sorts of things. And similar to above, we have a discussion board activity, which is a reflection about the collaborative experiences they might have had in the classroom, where they can share these kinds of thoughts with the rest of the team. This next part is, I guess because I'm an illustrator, this is the part that I, probably the only part that I brought to the course. What's the difference? This is the thing that is really, really difficult to express to someone if you're just talking about blogs and discussion boards. And I found that when I was teaching this sort of training face-to-face, I would wind up going to the whiteboard and drawing illustrations to try to make it clear in the minds of faculty how these tools are different. For instance, these illustrations show that blogs are essentially one person posting information and a bunch of other people commenting, just saying this was great or I thought this was interesting. The comments don't have the same kind of weight as the original post. Whereas in discussion boards, you have one person commenting and then you have one person replying, and the reply can be of equal weight. So it's really a back and forth sort of discussion as opposed to a blog. So the pictures are there to sort of illustrate that clearly. Below that, this is a really handy activity that Ericka came up with. It's a review chart that talks about the tools, how they're different, and how they might be comparable in a face-to-face course. So it gives you an idea of if this was a face-to-face activity. If I do this in a face-to-face activity, maybe a blog would be a good way to do this in an online course. Or perhaps a discussion board would be a more appropriate tool to use in an online course. And we also have over on the far right corner, far right column, several examples just to kind of prime the faculty's pump to get them thinking about the sorts of activities they could use this particular tool for in their own course. Below that, we have a short self-assessment talking about discussion boards and blogs, and they can take this sort of self-assessment as many times as they like. One of the things that I like about the self-assessment is that it presents them with sample activities and asks the instructor, do they think this would be a good blog activity? Would it be a better discussion board activity? And why? And below that, we have a folder that's full of scholarly articles and resources. These are online articles as well as books, just to give the instructor an opportunity to dig in a little deeper if they want to do some reading about what the current literature says about collaborative activities, blogs, or discussion boards in class. So that's how module week 1 is laid out, and as I said, all of the weeks are essentially the same. At this point, I'm going to turn the presentation. Do we have any kind of particular questions that are out there? I know Xavier's been looking at the chat while I've been presenting. He says there are no questions there. Are there any particular questions that anyone wants to raise before we move on? All right, then. And I'm going to basically let Ericka do the rest of the presentation this morning.
Thank you, David. The first thing that I want to talk about is our first blog activity that's in week 1. And it's called Two Truths and a Lie. As David mentioned, this is one of his favorite activities, and we've gotten really great feedback from this activity. And for those of you who may not be familiar with it, basically, you give 2 facts about yourself and an untruth, which also is a lie, and everyone tries to guess which one is the truth and which one is the lie. So we have some instructions here for the faculty to go in and click the blog, and we have the same instructions here. You'll notice that the instructions are also repeated inside the activity. And I'm going to use Xavier's example here. All right, I think the page is just loading a little slowly. Okay, so Xavier introduces himself. He says, you know, what he does at the university, and he also says that these are some things about himself. So the first one is a video. We want to bring in and show faculty that there are some creative ways to do this. So he has a video from YouTube of a truck driver. The second thing he says is that he used to play the banjo when he was very young, and there's an audio recording. And the third thing is that he's an artist, and there is a photo there. So everyone else in the course is to guess what is the truth and what is the lie. And if we scroll down a bit, you can see some of the comments. Most people guess that he wasn't an artist, when in fact that is a real picture that Xavier drew of his grandfather. So this is just one way for the class participants to get to know each other. And we found that it was a real good icebreaker to not only introduce us, ourselves, because we each have one, but also to introduce what it is like to have an individual blog. Okay, so that's in week one. And also in week one, we have a discussion board. Show you guys that. And in this discussion board, what we want the faculty to do is to describe what their definition of online collaboration is in their own words, and to give some examples of collaborative activities that they do face-to-face, and perhaps some activities that they want to do online, but they're not sure how to do them, just to start a dialogue going amongst the faculty and amongst the facilitators. So we asked, are there any face-to-face collaborative activities that you would like to do online? And we also asked, what is one of the biggest challenges? What are the biggest challenges that they see with online collaboration? And you'll see later on in the presentation that we come back and address those in the last week to see how they're feeling about those challenges. So if you can go into that. We've removed the faculty's name, so they just say anonymous, but you can see that there was lots of conversation going about online collaboration, face-to-face activities, what can be done online, and a lot of faculty shared what they were doing in their classes, and the exchange between the faculty was really rich, and it was just a great discussion board. Can you click into some of those? Just so you guys can see an example. Oh, there's me. Oh, that's interesting. They're not showing up. Okay, well, we will continue to move on. So these are they're just loading really slow. We're on a different computer in the lab. So this one instructor talks about how he's been teaching for the last 44 years and what some of his concerns are, and I think I make a comment that that he touched on two key aspects of collaboration, working together and active engagement. And that was really what we were trying to emphasize with this course, to be active and to give the students some type of activities where they can engage with each other and with the instructors. So these are the two activities that we used in week one, were the course blog and also the discussion board, which a lot of our faculty were already familiar with that, but we wanted to go ahead and go over that as well. As David mentioned before, you know, there are some differences between the discussion board and the blog, so we wanted to make sure that those were really obvious, and we wanted to make it explicit for our faculty. So on week two was all about group work. As you can see here, we laid out the objectives, and there's an image here of groups. We randomly assigned groups, and there were anywhere from 3 to 5 faculty in each group. And what they were to do was to create a wiki. But before they created the wiki, they worked together to create a learning team charter. which is in a Word document. And in this charter, what they did was they decided who would be responsible for what pieces of their wiki. So if we can go into the Learning Team Charter, there are different roles that they could have. The 3 roles were a historian, a building specialist, and a media specialist. So those were the 3 different roles that they had, and I think we're looking for where is the Learning Team Charter. Bear with us for just a minute. Oh, there it is. Okay, so here's an example of what they were doing, and me personally, I've taught online before, and I always use the Learning Team Charter to kind of get the team introduced to each other so they kind of know what their strengths and weaknesses are. In the charter, they also go over how they will handle conflict and other things like that. They also discuss what is the best time for them to meet and what are the best communication methods, whether that be email, texting, Skype, Google Hangout, or what have you. So here's an example of a charter. So it goes over the, okay. So we were bringing up the charter, but it wasn't on AppShare, so you guys couldn't see that. So we will keep going. Back to week 2. We also had the actual wiki, which you guys would be able to see. So the purpose of their wiki assignment was to take a building on campus and create a wiki based on that. So what we're trying to do eventually is to have a wiki about the university that was created by our very own faculty. So if you can click on that, you guys can see the wiki here. There are several buildings listed on the left, and as an example, we're the Beat Squad, so we took the building that we work in, Camden Carroll Library, and we did that first. But you can see there are also several links. There's one to Breckenridge Hall, if we can click on that. You guys can see what the faculty, their team was able to put together. They went with a then and now of how the building looks, and they also provided some information, some historical information about Breckenridge Hall and how it got together. And also they provided some videos about the building. So the great thing about the instructors doing the wiki is that they were able to see how it works, as well as we were able to show them the contribution factors so they can see how many, we can see who participated when and how. So we also were able to share that with the instructors. So for week 2, our activities essentially were the Learning Team Charter, which they had to complete in a group assignment, and also the wiki. So that's what we did for week 2 as far as collaborative activities. And moving on to week 3, week 3 was all about video web conferencing. So what we did at the end of week 2 was we sent out a doodle request asking for availability for the following week to determine when would be the best time for us to conduct a Collaborate session. And David is our resident expert on Collaborate, so he conducts the sessions for us. And we gave them some information about Collaborate, a handout ahead of time, and we also created a practice room so the faculty can go in and familiarize themselves with the Blackboard Collaborate room before we actually had the session. And during the session, very much like Lauren did in the beginning, but more in depth, we went over the different aspects of Collaborate, and we also had a discussion about online learning in the Collaborate session. And what we did, we also recorded this session and made it available for the faculty who were unable to attend. And we made that recording available to them. So that was one of the biggest activities that we had for week 3. And in week 1, 2, and 3, we've had a course blog there at the bottom where you see it says connecting the dots. And it's just a course blog that allows faculty to go in and make comments all throughout the course whenever they like on whatever kind of comments that they have. So someone saying how they like Blackboard Collaborate, and there's some other comments that are out there about using collaborative tools in music. So we've had some interesting stories and some interesting uses of collaborative tools that we as, professionals who offer PD for faculty probably wouldn't have thought of, but we definitely were so impressed with what the faculty had to say and their uses of collaborative tools. So that's pretty much the different types of collaborative tools that we use during the online collaborative experience. And now we'll give you guys some, I have a question here. The question says, during the course are the points when all the students are logging on simultaneously for a live activity or discussion? There is a synchronous activity, and the synchronous activity was Blackboard Collaborate, which we did in week 3. But the students, the instructors, they didn't get any points counted off if they didn't attend the session. Yes. The next question is, are all images and videos captioned on your course website for the vision impaired? And the answer to that is yes. Xavier did an excellent job with doing, making sure that our videos and our captions are accessible for those who may be visually impaired. Are there any other questions?
Well, it's computers.
Great, thank you, Ericka and David. And I think there are a few more that I can announce to you. I just wanted to make one point about the video captions. And I know many of you are interested in that topic, and we have an upcoming BITS webinar about making accessible videos on November 14th, if any of you are interested in that topic and making sure that your course can have that accessibility. The next question is from Michelle, asking about how you marketed to faculty. Are they required to participate in this course for professional development?
Yeah, actually, this is something that is not required, but we have been surprised because there's been quite a bit of interest. Originally, the first crew that signed up for this were really people that were part of our initial boot camp activity. But word spread through word of mouth here on campus that this was actually something that was pretty valuable, that they learned a lot from, and it's something that they can just do in their spare time, which is really great, except for the synchronous activity.
Great, and then can you actually elaborate a little bit more on that synchronous activity in week 3? I think Ericka said it was the collaborate activity. Can you talk about kind of what that session looked like and what, the structure of your collaborate webinar was?
Absolutely. Really, it is essentially a Blackboard Collaborate training because a lot of people who are participating haven't ever used the tool before or even seen it and thought about using an online course. It really surprised me, the feedback that I got after the activity, that people were so excited about using the course. I also had people who were very upset because they could not participate in the course live, even though they got to actually view the recording afterwards. But again, this is a very good learning activity for faculty to know that it's particularly in an online class, it's difficult to get everybody to be able to attend a particular session. So I would get them in there, into the Collaborate session. I would go over the different tools in Collaborate. We would have a couple of group activities about activities you could use Blackboard Collaborate for, as opposed to a discussion board or a blog or a wiki, and then we'd pull them in and everyone would talk about their experiences with the tool, the difficulties, the pluses, and the minuses of meeting synchronously in an online course.
Lauren, we would also like to share some statistics that we have from the course. As you can see, we try to do this every semester, not during the summer, of course, and we typically have anywhere from 5, I think the most we've had is, 12 participants, but there is a minimum of 5, and we've had 3 sessions so far, and as you can see, 75% strongly agree that this is something that they can apply to their everyday job. And also, here's some basic statistics that you guys can take a look at. We were very pleased with the results that we received. The 87.5% strongly agree that they can apply the information to their job performance, and that the length of the course was adequate. We were concerned that maybe 3 weeks, is it long enough? Is it not long enough? So we were very excited that the course was on target. And as you can see, the most useful topic was wiki. The faculty, they really love, that wiki component, and they can see how they could use that in their courses. And of course, the Blackboard Collaborate was also one that was well liked. The one that was rated low was the discussion boards, as Dave mentioned before. That's a kind of an older collaborative tool that's kind of been used a lot, so we kind of expected that. But they also enjoyed working in groups and definitely the blog. And these are just some quotes that we took from the survey that we gave the faculty. And are there any questions that you can give us, Lauren?
There was another one about the synchronous collaborative activities. Nikki's wondering if you went over how to use the breakout rooms during your Collaborate synchronous webinar.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's something that not a lot of faculty are aware of, that you could actually pretty quickly and easily make breakout rooms in Blackboard Collaborate, so I definitely made a point of showing that to them. And I basically sent them out into groups and to talk about, I gave them a scenario about a particular activity, and then I sent them to breakout rooms to talk about that activity and what particular tool would be best. Once again, reinforcing that kind of discernment as to which kind of tool would be most effective for a particular activity. And then we brought them all back and they shared their results. It was a really great activity.
And we can do a quick poll on our live webinar. How many of you did know that you could create breakout rooms and Collaborate? If you want to give a green check mark or a red X if you did not know that.
2 people do.
Oh wow, looks like most of you do know that, which is great. And then Misty just commented in the chat that Think Pink Share TPS is a great collaborative learning strategy to use with the wiki tool. And so she's going to Google. If you're not familiar with that phrase TPS, there's definitely a ton of information out there. So another great tidbit there. And Sue has a question: how did you overcome the Java configurations people have which prevent smooth access? Did you have any issues with access to Collaborate when you were running your webinars?
That is a really great question. One of the things that we did, of course, at the very beginning of the week, we made a practice room available so that they could test their system to make sure that their Java was working. I made sure I provided the 1-800-24/7 help desk number in case they were having problems getting their computer to work with Collaborate. And as a last-ditch effort, if they really needed to, we have a lab space with a webcam and a headset, and they could come to the lab space if they just wanted to, if they felt more comfortable there than at their machine at home.
Okay. Another question from Bonita: is this course also offered for students who are new to online learning? And if it's not, do you have a course tailored to students?
Currently, this course is only offered to faculty because it's for their professional development. That's primarily who we target for our PD. But we do have we link to several of the on-demand videos for students, and that module is available once they log in as a student into Blackboard. So currently, we don't have anything like this as far as online collaborative tools for students, but we do make the videos and the tutorials available for them. And they can always call us if they have issues as well.
Great, thank you, Ericka. Continue to write your questions into the chat and we'll get them answered. I also wanted to point out Xavier earlier had posted a link so you can actually tour this actual course that Ericka, David, and Xavier created. It's at ecpgallery.coursesites.com. We have a few of our most recent winners up there, so you can enroll in their course as a student and then take a look around and then additionally follow up if you have other questions. But it's a great way to take a deeper dive into the material that they're talking about today. But feel free to keep your questions coming or to share your comments about if you have faculty development at your school, if you've participated in any, or great tips and tools that you liked or ones that you would like to see. So Sue's asking if they can copy the course and use it with their faculty. David or Ericka, I'm not sure if you've discussed that option yet.
We really haven't made the entire course available to faculty. That's an interesting idea, but I do know that I had one instance where a faculty took the class previously and then was developing wikis for her own course. So she asked if she could be readmitted into the course just so she could get a hold of those resources. And actually, was that not the question? I'm sorry.
I think Sue's asking if she can copy it and then use it at her own campus.
I don't think we've even discussed that possibility, Lauren. I don't think it's something we'd be just turned down outright, but it's not anything that we've discussed at this point, so I really can't answer.
So maybe if you can follow-up email about that, then we can check on that and get back to you.
Got it. And so I have your information from registering, so we can follow up. And we can follow up with the group who registered if Morehead, would allow the course to be open for other institutions to use. So we will follow up if that is the case. So a big thank you again to David, Ericka, and Xavier. So we have some time so we can continue taking questions. This was the bulk of their presentation, so we're just going to have formal Q&A continue now. So if you do have to drop off, thank you for joining. Hopefully we'll see you in another BITS webinar. If not, we'll be on the session answering more questions.
Lauren, we would like to know if there's any particular part of the course that the faculty or the people that are online would like to see. Maybe something that we may have gone through quickly or...
Okay, great. Yeah, so if you want to see something else, a deep dive in the course, write your comments into the chat and then Ericka and David will continue a demo. So John's asking, is there a feature on Blackboard where participants could, in a synchronous mode, post ideas on a whiteboard?
They can be did you want to answer that one, Lauren?
Oh, no, go ahead, Ericka.
Okay, I was going to say they can if we were having a Blackboard Collaborate session, but as far as, in week 1 and week 2, not so much. But we did have the Connecting the Dots blog available for them, as well as they can always email us and ask us questions or post in the discussion board. One suggestion that we had from the survey was to have like a muddiest points or a overall discussion board that goes throughout the course where people can ask questions. So I think that may be hitting on what you're saying. Yeah, discussions are an oldie, but they are still pretty good. Oh, thanks for sharing that article. We can add this to our scholarly articles and resources section. So if you guys have any articles or resources that you want to share with us so we can share with our faculty, please send them. That would be awesome to continue to build on the library that we've already started.
And we'll make sure to include the link that Misty, and I think there was one earlier, in the follow-up email so you all can have direct access to those as well.
It looks like we have a question from John. Is that I like to have participants post together simultaneously. Is that possible with a Blackboard feature? As far as I know, and Lauren, you or Misty can speak to this more, the wiki is about as close as you can get. It sounds like what you're describing is a Google Doc, and right now I don't think that Blackboard quite has a feature just like that.
Yes, I believe you're correct, Ericka, and I see Misty. I think Misty's also going to follow up with that. Oh, she's confirming also that you're correct, Ericka. So John, the closest you'll get right now is that wiki.
Also, Misty, thank you for posting that link to the Ericka's article.
I'm not seeing any additional questions right now, so another big thank you to our team of presenters today from Morehead State University, Ericka, David, and Xavier, and Misty for supporting the call in the chat as well. Okay, great. Everyone's just saying thank you. So thank you for joining. I think we'll close it here as we've answered all of your questions. We will follow up with the course if it's able to be copied to your institution. We'll send out a recap with the recording presentation slides and these links that Misty have been posting within 48 hours. Hope to see you on another BITS webinar. Have a great rest of the week. I think Nikki just posted a question, how many microphones can be on in the breakout rooms? Not sure, Ericka or David, if you want to talk about how many you used in your synchronous activities.
I think the maximum mics that you could have on in a Collaborate session period is 6. I don't know if that law changes if you're in a breakout room or not. I would expect not. So I would expect overall the most microphones you can have open at once would be 6.
Yep, that is correct. It's 6 simultaneously that Misty just confirmed.
Well, Stephanie, if you have any questions, let us know. We're glad that you could make it.
All right, thanks all. So we'll hope to see you in another BITS webinar. And I think we will provide contact information if you want to follow up with the Morehead State University. All right, have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Lauren and Misty.